At a family dinner, Mom declared, "When we're gone, the house and savings go to the grandkids, who actually visit. So basically, your sister's kids." My daughter whispered, "Should we just stop coming then?" I smiled and dropped the argument. Months later, at the lawyer's office, the screen listed one heir, my invisible child, because my grandpa. Have you ever been told, point blank, that you don't count? That your family's future, the legacy you helped build, would go to everyone but you? Well, I had that moment, but what they didn't know was that an old, dusty document was about to deliver the most satisfying blow of my life. My name is Malcolm. I'm 38, and I fix engines for a living. You know the type: oil perpetually under the nails, coffee in the thermos, a busted radio in the bay that blasts classic rock and cuts out every time the air compressor kicks on. In my family, I've always been the background guy, the fixer. If something rattled, I was the one under the table, turning a wrench, while everyone else just kept eating. Sunday dinner was a sacred, inescapable ritual, the one I'd get guilt-tripped for weeks if I ever dared to grab an extra shift. Mom had her announcements voice on, which usually meant something significant, or at least something she considered significant. Dad just stared at his plate, like the peas might spontaneously organize themselves into a more palatable shape. My sister, Carrera, and her husband had their 2 boys glued to iPads, sound off, thumbs flying like they were training for the Digital Olympics. My daughter, June, who's 12, sat beside me, tapping the salt shaker in a quiet, rhythmic way that only I seemed to notice. Then Mom raised her glass. "When we're gone," she declared, her eyes sweeping over all of us, somehow looking past me, "the house and the savings go to the grandkids who show up." A loaded pause. Then a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "That means Carrara's boys, of course." She let out a light, tinkling laugh, as if it were a perfectly landed joke. I wasn't a dramatic guy, but I heard the subtext so loud it made my ears throb. Translation: June, and I don't count. We don't post enough brunch photos. We don't stay until midnight. We don't perform family the way they do. Carrera, basking in the glow, leaned back in her chair, all faux humility. "Oh, Mom," she cooed, "don't make it about us. It's just about who's present." Mom's eyes drifted over my grease-stained work shirt, lingering on my stitched name patch. "Exactly," she said. "Who shows up?" I almost laughed. Who shows up? For 112 Saturdays under cars at the shop. 5 winters plowing their driveway before dawn. Sometimes before the sun was even a promise. Showing up was practically my hobby. June nudged me under the table, her shoe finding mine. She whispered, her voice barely audible, "Should we stop coming then?" A wave of heat climbed my neck. It wasn't anger, not yet, just that old, familiar weight settling in. The mechanic in me wanted to list parts. Years, dollars, miles. I wanted to remind Mom that June had spent last Christmas Eve on the living room floor building a Lego garage with Grandpa Ray, while Carrera was posting glamorous selfies from a ski condo. I wanted to say, "This is who shows up," and slide a stack of receipts across the table. Instead, I just smiled gently at June, squeezed her hand, and took my hand off the grenade. "Eat your green beans," I said softly. Dad cleared his throat, a quiet protest. "Let's not." Mom waved him off. "I'm just saying, Malcolm. We don't want any confusion later. Carrara's boys are always here. They help. They care." June didn't look up, but I heard her small voice. "I care." Carrara's husband coughed into his napkin like an applause cue. Her boys kept scrolling. I chewed slowly, watching the gravy congeal on my plate, telling myself this was just another comment in a lifetime of them. I didn't argue. I didn't take the bait. After everyone had rushed off to their more important plans, I finished washing the dishes alone. I drove June home in my old F-150, the soft rattle in the passenger door humming a familiar tune. I hadn't fixed it yet. It reminded me of Grandpa's truck. At a red light, June asked, "Do you think Grandma meant it?" I think, I said, choosing my words like bolts from a tray. Grandma likes saying things out loud so she can hear herself think. June nodded, watching the raindrops race down the glass. I kept my eyes on the road and said nothing else. But that sentence, the house and the savings go to the grandkids who show up, it sat in the cab with us, buckled in, quiet as a socket set at night. Something inside me shifted. I pulled a cardboard file box from the top shelf of my closet and set it on the kitchen table. It felt like a small engine I'd been pretending wasn't misfiring. I wasn't going to fight, I told myself. I was just going to look. Let me back up a bit. I grew up in a 2-bedroom ranch with a yard just big enough for Dad's smoker and a patch of clover that never died. Carrera got the room with the bigger window. I got the couch for a year while Dad finished the basement, which, to this day, is still just studs and a single dangling bulb. The thing is, I didn't mind being the fixer. I liked knowing how things worked. Grandpa Ray taught me. He was a carpenter, hands like kiln-dried oak, and a grin that made you think of Saturday morning cartoons. I spent more time in his garage than anywhere else. He used to say, "Machines don't lie. If something's wrong, it tells you if you listen." Mom, though, she liked people who sparkled. Carrera sparkled. Pageants, choir solos, the kind of report cards you post on Facebook with a caption like #blessed. I brought home alternators and perfect bowling games. My wins didn't fit on the mantle, and that was fine. Until it wasn't. Let me give you 3 quick scenes. When I was 19, Carrera's Civic died on I-295 at midnight. I drove 30 miles with a tow strap, a flashlight between my teeth, lay in slush under her bumper, and got her home. Mom said, "Thank God for AAA," and handed Carrera a blanket. AAA never even came. I didn't correct her. When I was 26, Dad lost his job. The mortgage got scary. I took on 2 extra shifts and loaned them $850 a month for a year. Mom called it a family blessing. That Christmas, Carrera opened an espresso machine. I got socks with little wrenches on them. When June was born, I texted a photo to the family chat. Carrera heart reacted and immediately launched into planning my daughter's brand. Mom wrote, "So happy." For months later, when Carrera announced a puppy, Mom sent 16 MES, sage, and a voice memo. I kept showing up, because I believed family is what you do, not what you post. Then the house. Dad's back went out. Payments slipped. I could have said sell it, but this wasn't just their house. It was Grandpa Ray's. He built the front steps himself, carving his initials on the underside of the banister. Mom always liked to say, "This house stays in the family." I liked that sentence, too, the way it sounded in my head as I pushed the mower in an August heat wave. "Help us refinance," Mom asked 5 years ago. "We'll put you on the deed. You'll save the house. We'll make it right." The numbers were seared into my memory. $329,874.12. That's what the mortgage was after the refinance closed. I know because I wrote it at the top of a legal pad the day we sat with Brenda, the loan officer with the lemon-printed blouse. I signed as co-borrower so they'd qualify. Brenda said, "You're a good son." Mom squeezed my arm. "He rocks." For 60 months, I paid exactly $5,612 every 4 weeks. $1,886 for the mortgage draft, $726 for taxes/insurance, bulked in a separate envelope if the escrow ran short. I have the Zelle screenshots. I have the transfers. I even have the times I ran cash down to the bank when the AC hiccuped and the teller wrote, "Thank you, M," on the receipt like we were friends. 5 years. Winter tires I skipped. A vacation June and I didn't take. All so it could stay in the family, Mom would repeat like a prayer. 2 summers ago, I fixed a leak in the upstairs bath. When I opened the vanity kick panel, I found a thick envelope wedged behind a trap. Not money. Old mail. The top letter was from the county, a change of deed notification. The names on the window were Robert Whitaker, Mom, Dad and Cara Emerson. Not mine. I stood in that tiny bathroom with a flashlight and the slow drip of a stubborn P-trap, reading line after line until the letters swam before my eyes. Gift deed. No consideration. Record of transfer. I set the envelope on the toilet lid and stared at a tiny black mold spot I'd meant to scrub a year ago. I didn't say a word. I didn't breathe. That night, after putting June to bed, I sat at our kitchen table with that cardboard file box, and I started what I later called, in my head, the receipts. Bank statements, Zelle exports, screenshots of Mom's texts. Can you cover this month, kiddo? We're tight. Carrara's got the boys' tuition due. Emails from the loan officer. As discussed, Malcolm's name to be added to deed, post-closing, via quick claim. A calendar reminder I'd set for myself the week after closing. Notary. Add to deed. Mom rescheduled that notary 3 times. We'll do it next month. Your sister needs to get off work for signatures. It never happened. I printed everything. I made tabs. I labeled a flash drive. I even took photos of the underside of the banister, of Grandpa's initials, and printed those too. It felt important. Something else bothered me. A click, you know? A puzzle piece that fits, but you can't quite place it. The house wasn't just a house. It was technically part of the Ray Whitaker Family Trust, a document Grandpa's friend, Mr. Alvarez, he old lawyer with a stubborn tie knot, drafted in 2001 after Grandma died. I remembered because I'd been 12 and Grandpa had asked me to help him scan something fancy. In that file box, under a stack of old shop manuals, I found a photocopy Grandpa had given me for safekeeping. He knew I liked keeping screws in their own bins. I read the trust at midnight, highlighter in hand. Legal language felt like instructions in a different language for an engine I recognized only by sound. Then I found it, a subsection under distribution of primary residence. I only remembered it as a vague shape on paper years ago. Section 4.7, Maintenance and Preservation Contributor Clause. I circled it. I didn't sleep. Subsection 4.7 said, in human words, that if any descendant by blood made material contributions for not less than 60 consecutive months to preserve the residence from foreclosure, the descendant had the power to appoint the remainder interest to his or her issue, or failing that, to said descendant. It also said any later transfer or gift could not override the clause. I sat very still. I thought about Mom saying the grandkids who show up. And I thought about June, 5 years old, handing Grandpa Ray screws in order by length at his workbench, because she liked the way he'd say, "That's my girl. She listens." Carrara came by for photos on the porch at golden hour. June came by when the sump pump died. I didn't rush. I went quiet. The next months, I added more to the file. A PDF of the refinance instructions Brenda emailed. Post-close. Add Malcolm to title via quick claim. I highlighted that sentence. A screenshot of Mom's message. Can you Venmo the insurance shortage? $726. Time-stamped. I annotated it with a pencil like a lunatic on a crime show. A photo of Carrara at the housewarming she threw herself when the boys graduated from preschool. The caption in the family chat, "Home at Mom's," where the memories are. My daughter June was in the background, holding a shop rag, her face smudged with graphite from the garage. No likes. I wasn't planning revenge. I was building a diagram. If it had a belt, I would have traced it. Then came Mom's announcement about grandkids who show up. I heard Grandpa's voice in my head. Machines don't lie. Neither do documents. It wasn't Christmas or a birthday. It was a Saturday family cleanup day. Mom's idea, complete with a sign-up sheet. Carrara texted like she was planning a charity gala. Bring gloves, she added. I brought a box. In the driveway, Dad adjusted his back brace and nodded at me, but wouldn't meet my eyes. Carrara set up a snack table. Store-bought cookies, sparkling water, the good napkins. Her boys dragged branches for 5 minutes, then vanished. June and I cleaned the gutters. I let the ladder bite into my shoulder. Focus helps. Around noon, Mom declared, "Let's break for lunch and talk about next steps." I wiped my hands and said one thing. In the voice I use at the shop when I'm about to tell someone their timing chain isn't just noisy. It's 2 hours from catastrophic. Mom smiled, already bored. "Make it quick. Carrera has practice pickup." I set the cardboard box on the picnic table, labeled tabs, stacks of paper, a USB drive in a small zip bag. "What's this?" Carrera asked, laughing like I'd brought show and tell. "Receipts," I said. Mom frowned. "Malcolm, if this is about Thanksgiving, it's about the house," I said evenly. Dad's eyes flicked up. I don't yell. I build short sentences. "Torque specs for 5 years," I continued. "I paid $329,874.12 in mortgage and shortages. That's 60 months. Not missing one. Here are the transfers, drafts, and the times I covered the escrow myself." I slid a color-coded stack forward. Mom didn't take it. Carrera glanced at it like paper gave her hives. "I was told I'd be on the deed after the refinance. Brenda's email says so. Your texts rescheduled the notary 3 times. Then I found this." I held up the county notice like a damaged gasket. "Gift deed. To Carrera." "That's not." Mom started. "Legal," Carrera said, arms folded, chin up. "Parents can gift. It's our family." We agreed. I'd eventually... "Carrera," Dad said, a warning in his voice I hadn't heard since I was a teenager. I didn't look at them. I opened the trust copy and slid out a clipped page. "Section 4.7, I said. "Maintenance and Preservation Contributor Clause." "What?" Carrera blinked. I read, careful and calm, the way Grandpa taught me to read torque values twice. I pointed to the line with my finger, then slid a printed screenshot from the scanned PDF I'd pulled off my old email. Grandpa's scan, the one I'd helped with at 12. There was a faint hash in his handwriting in the margin. It felt like a hand on my shoulder. "Any later transfer," I read, "is void against this clause." Mom's smile collapsed like a bad souffle. "Oh, please," she said. "That's ancient. Your grandfather put that in to feel important." Dad rubbed his jaw. "The lawyer is still alive," I said. "Mr. Alvarez." I called and asked if the trust was amended. It wasn't. He remembered Grandpa Ray using the phrase, "the one who keeps the lights on." He also remembered this. I tapped another page. "The appointee is allowed to appoint the remainder to his or her issue." "What does that mean?" Carrera's voice sharpened. "It means," I said, my heart steady, "I choose who gets the house after Mom and Dad's life estate ends. And because you executed a gift deed, ignoring the clause, I retain that appointment. I filed an appointment with Mr. Alvarez this week." "Who?" Mom demanded. "You." I looked at June. She looked at me like I'd just handed her a headlamp and said, "You ready?" "No," I said to Mom. "June." The air went dead quiet in the yard. "You've lost it." Carrera said, brittle, "You can't put a child on." "Trust law allows a designation to a minor's UTMA trust with a custodian," I said. "Clause 4.7 doesn't restrict appointment age." Mom looked at Dad. "Robert." Dad kept staring at the paper, like it might speak again. "Malcolm," Mom said carefully, the way you talk to a customer you're trying to upsell. "Be reasonable. The house belongs with the grandkids who show up." "Who showed up?" I asked. I didn't raise my voice. I turned to June, who'd unclogged the sump with me at 2 a.m. last March. She raised a hand, then dropped it, confused, then half-smiled. "Who helped Grandpa Ray sort screws by size at that workbench the year before he died?" I asked, my voice softening. June whispered, "Me." "This isn't about revenge." I said, turning back to Mom and Carrera. This is about closure. Carrera scoffed. You think you're some hero for keeping a roof on a house you also live in sometimes? Grow up. We have kids. They need stability. June's fingers found the hem of my jacket and held it tight. I've retained counsel, I said. There will be a letter. The gift deed is void against the clause. The remainder is appointed. Life goes on. Until it doesn't. That was it. I closed the box. I didn't slam it. I picked it up, nodded to Dad, and walked June to the truck. By the time we hit the first light, my phone started buzzing. Mom, Carrera, unknown numbers. Group chat pings from a cousin. Then Dad, then Mom again. 27 missed calls by the time we pulled into our driveway. I let the engine idle. The rattle in the passenger door hummed like a metronome. The flood started before we took our boots off. Selfish, Mom wrote. You're ruining the family. You don't even understand what this does to the boys, Carrera texted, then followed with 8 voice notes where she alternated between crying and pronouncing legal terms like she was auditioning for a courtroom show. One said, think of the kids, twice. Dad texted, call me. Uncle Paul. Bud, think about your mother's health. Aunt Wendy, your sister has enough on her plate. She can't move again. A number I didn't recognize sent. You'll be sorry in court. We'll bury you. Then 5 minutes later, sorry, wrong text, meant to send to Carrera. Then a thumbs up. By the first night, 42 missed calls, 19 voicemails, 31 texts across 3 threads. By morning, 68, 26, and plus 1 new group added me. I'm not dramatic. I didn't respond. I called the only number I wanted to call, Mr. Alvarez's office. Confirmed receipt of my signed appointment and the custodian designation for June's UTMA trust. He said, "Good morning, Malcolm," and sounded like he'd been expecting the storm since 2001. He promised to send a letter to the county regarding the void gift deed, and to Mom and Dad's counsel of choice, once they retained one. I prefer letters, he said. They make people breathe. I hired a tenant/landlord attorney who knew trust intersections and sent a clean, dry notice to Mom and Dad through certified mail. Life estate unchanged. Remainder appointed. No immediate impact on possession. No rent demanded. No locks changed. It was the least dramatic version of a sledgehammer. Carrera called 17 times in one afternoon. I put my phone face down and changed the oil in a customer's Tacoma. My hands remembered how to be a mechanic. Oil filter off. Gasket checked. Funnel steady. Torque 25 FTLBS. Not too much. Wipe check. Breathe. June watched from the step stool at the bay door. I taught her to look for double gasket mistakes. Engines don't forgive pride, I told her. Most nights I didn't sleep much. Not because I was scared of court. I wasn't. But because the noise in my head sounded like group chat pings, even when my phone was off. I made tea instead of coffee. After 7 p.m., I stopped checking my phone in bed. I put the cardboard file box back in the closet and stacked June's school project on top of it. She's building a birdhouse. The plans are sketched like a blueprint Grandpa would have liked. The family found new angles. June will hate you when she realizes you stole from her cousins, Aunt Wendy wrote. You're spiteful. Mom wrote, your grandfather would be ashamed. Then an hour later, can we talk? Then, your sister's boys cried themselves to sleep. Then, your daughter should not be used as a pawn. Then, you always were jealous. Dad finally texted a full sentence. I didn't know about the clause. I'm tired. I sent him one line back. I'm not taking the house from you. He didn't reply, but he sent a photo the next day of the underside of the banister. Grandpa's initials, the date carved in with a shaky hand. No caption. The lawyer's letters went out. A county clerk responded with a stamp and a sentence longer than a drive shaft. Gift deed recorded on date is void as to the remainder interest by virtue of section 4.7 of the Ray Whittaker Family Trust. Indexing will reflect life estate only to current possessors. Remainder appointed to UTMA FBO June Whittaker, custodian Malcolm Whittaker, under instrument dated date. I read it twice and breathed like I had just torqued a lug nut perfectly. I didn't post anything. Kara posted everything. Screenshots, cropped paragraphs about betrayal, her face angled in good light with a caption about lessons from pain. People commented with hearts and swords. Cousins picked sides in private. June and I changed little things, not big ones. We ate breakfast at the table instead of standing at the counter. We kept a notebook by the door and wrote down dumb good things about the day. Saw a hawk. Truck finally passed emissions. Got the stuck jar open first try. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb after 9 p.m. and didn't override it. I took June to Grandpa's garage, now half storage and half shrine. We found his old Tool Rules sign and dusted it. I showed her how to gap a spark plug, and she did it right the first time because she listens. Mom drove by the shop once. I saw her Corolla in the lot through the bay door. She didn't come in. The next day, she texted, "We can fix this if you apologize." I didn't reply. 2 weeks in, Carrara's husband called from a number I didn't have saved. "We can buy you out," he said without a hello. 50 grand. You walk away. I almost laughed. 50 wouldn't touch 5 years of checks I'd written. Never mind the clause and the trust and the whole point, which wasn't money. "It's not for sale," I said, "and it's not mine. It's appointed to June." "You know what that means." He huffed. "You're impossible." "Engines don't care about feelings," I said almost kindly. "They care about specs." I hung up and changed the subject in my head to something that mattered. June had a science night at school. She was making a pulley out of a skateboard truck and a shoelace. We tested it with soup cans. The nights got quieter. 82 missed calls turned into 10. 10 into 3. 3 into silence for a morning. Silence felt like a clear test drive on back roads. I slept through the night for the first time in a month and woke up to sunlight instead of a ringtone. Then an email hit from Mr. Alvarez's assistant. "Please confirm attendance at Friday review meeting. All parties invited. Remote option available." I stared at the screen and thought of Mom's sentence about grandkids who show up. I thought of how showing up looks different when you stop trying to be seen. The conference room was plain. Long table, big TV, spider speakerphone. Mr. Alvarez had his stubborn tie and cardigan. Mom and Dad on one side. Carrera and her husband on video, bathed in perfect lighting. June sat beside me, braid neat hands in her hoodie. Alvarez clicked the remote. The trust appeared on screen. Section 4.7. He said, Maintenance and Preservation Contributor Clause. Mom tried to cut in. He went on calm. The contributor, Mr. Malcolm Whittaker, can appoint the remainder to his issue. He executed that last week. Click. My appointment to June's UTMA. Click. County Index. Life Estate Robert Whittaker. Remainder UTMA FBO June Whittaker. Carrara's screen froze, then returned angry. "You're giving a child a house." "No," I said. "Grandpa did." Mom's pen clicked like a warning. "Why her?" "Because she showed up," I said. Silence. The speakerphone hummed. "Terms are clear," Alvarez said. "Life estate stays. No removal, no rent, no sale without custodian consent. Major repairs by agreement." He looked at Dad. "Your father anticipated this. He liked machines." Dad whispered, "Ray," almost laughing. Carrera pivoted. "Fine. June can gift it to her cousins later." Under the table, June squeezed my hand. I let the quiet stand. The old family system had stalled. Alvarez turned to her. "Your great-grandfather wanted to reward the one who kept the lights on. Understand?" June nodded. "Yes, sir." "Malcolm," Mom said, half plea, half warning. I faced them all. I'm not fighting. I'm done being loved only if I don't keep track. The clause exists. The payments exist. We showed up. We still will on our terms. Mom's mouth shook. Holidays? Birthdays? We may come, I said, or stay home and make stew. You don't grade our love by attendance. Poetic, Carrera muttered. Plain, said, like engines. We stood. Alvarez handed me a manila envelope. Copy of the appointment. Stamped receipt. Heavier than it looked. At the door, Dad reached for my sleeve, then stopped. Ray would have liked this, he said. Not the fighting. The plan. Me too, I said. Outside. Winter sun on June's face. So, am I a landlord? Not today, I laughed. Today, you're a kid whose great-grandpa trusted the right person. We drove off. The passenger door kept its familiar rattle. A month later, 0 group chats. 2 nights a week, June and I cook something new. We do 5-mile loops at dusk, for no reason at all. 1 call from Mom, asking if I could fix the porch light. I said, send a work order to the shop. And she did. The file box stays in the closet. I don't count missed calls. I keep boundaries. Here's what I know. You don't have to be the family wallet or bleed time to earn dessert. You can keep the lights on and still turn off your phone at 9 p.m. and sleep. When people ask about revenge, I say, this isn't about revenge. This is about closure. There's a brass key on my ring to Grandpa's workbench. I almost texted a photo, then didn't. A ping from Carrera. The boys miss June. Can we schedule something? I set the phone down. Drive, I asked June. She grinned. We took the long road by the river. The door rattled, its old song. At home, a voicemail waited. I made tea. I fixed nothing. Tomorrow we might sand the birdhouse. Maybe change the shop radio. Maybe finally tighten that door. Not because someone asked. Because I want to. What about you? Have you ever felt invisible in your own family, or had to fight to be truly seen? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories.